run this mother? Girls. Who run the world? 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 Girls. Who run this mother?
So excited to finally be talking about this novel, The Heir by Kiera Cass. Now, I know a lot of you did not like this book. I know that popular opinion has been mixed on this one, and people don't really seem to enjoy the main character, the plot, or the selection process this time around. I surprised myself with this one. I gave it 4 stars. I thought I gave it 5, but I had to go back and look at my Goodreads, and I definitely gave this 4 solid stars. I highly enjoyed it. I found it intriguing. I found it absolutely fascinating. I enjoyed it so much more than the first 3 selection books combined. And I actually think Kiera Cass is finally on to something here. This book centers around a main female protagonist that most people who have read this novel find detestable at most and incredibly annoying at the least. There will be no spoilers in this discussion video for those of you who still have not read either this novel or the previous 3 selection books. So I just wanted to put that out there right now that there are absolutely no spoilers in this video, and this is a spoiler-free discussion. I will not be talking too much about the plot or delving too deeply into what came before these books, obviously, as that would be a spoiler. And I'm not going to be delving too deeply into what happened in this book. What I will be talking about is how I read this and the thoughts that came to mind while I was reading this book, why I personally enjoyed this, and why I think that if you've been thinking about delving into reading this one, you definitely should give it a chance. Now, this is not high literature, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you go in reading the selection books, you know exactly what you're getting. You know that Kiera Cass writes fun, fluffy, kind of light reads. They're not to be taken too seriously. This is considered a dystopian novel by default. There is nothing too dystopian about what's going on here. You know, it's just kind of a way to describe what's going on in this world in a very loose type of terminology. What really makes this book strong is, unlike the selection where we are sort of led down a path into thinking that we're really in a dystopian world and that it's really a political drama in some way, there is no type of falsity in this novel that leads you to believe that at all. We are not, going down that road. Kiera Cass is not trying to fool us, once again, into thinking that there's anything politically hefty going on here. This is simply The Bachelorette set in a dystopian setting, and we don't really focus on that setting. We focus more on the dating. This is a character-driven novel in every way, and the characters are the meat, the backbone. They are what drive the story, and as long as you're not looking for some deep dystopian plot and some important, hefty, commentary on the world and what's going on politically, you will be okay with this one. Our main character, Edelyn, is hated and rightfully so. I will give you that. However, I really enjoyed her character. I loved that she was strong. I loved that she was stubborn. I loved that she was not wanting to just settle down and get married. She was excited about being a queen and the first time ruler of her nation. The country had never had a female ruler before. It always had to be a king. And even though she had a twin brother, I loved the fact that for the first time, she was going to be allowed to rule instead of him. And her femaleness was not going to hold her back. Her femininity is something that she, throughout the course of the novel, had to learn to embrace as a strength and learn how to use with grace and wisdom. I feel that she was really tested within the course of the novel in the fact that she was so used to having people bow down to her. She was so used to being pampered and just given her every whim that when faced with reality of how her nation actually viewed her, she sort of had to wake up to the fact that she was going to have to learn to be beloved by her people, and she was going to have to learn to rule with grace. And that was something that Edelyn really lacked. She lacked grace, and she was beginning to learn compassion and empathy, and it was really a beautiful character arc to watch, because in the beginning of the novel, she had no compassion, she had no empathy, she was kind of full of her own importance and very egotistical and very self-absorbed. She had this bubble around her that she lived in, and she'd grown up with a silver spoon in her mouth with her every whim indulged and being pampered and completely coddled and spoiled by her parents. And so with her selection process, that's not a spoiler, I think we all know she has her own selection. With her selection process and meeting all these boys from all these different parts of her nation and being exposed to the public and the public's view of her, she was finally beginning to see with, truth how she was regarded and how she was seen. Her eyes were being opened to her nation's problems and how she was at the root of those problems, and how as a ruler she was going to have to learn to step down from that pedestal and get down to the nitty-gritty of learning how to rule a nation. Something I found fascinating while reading this novel is that the characteristics that a lot of people found truly distasteful and unappealing in Edelyn are characteristics that we often praise in male protagonists in young adult fiction. Kind of that jerky, bad boy, self-absorbed, egotistical, full of himself, arrogant type of personality is often really loved and fangirled over. We have fandoms about our male protagonists who kind of embody this persona of being better than everybody else and being arrogant and controlling and powerful. 50 Shades of Grey really comes to mind in Christian Grey, and just that persona of being rich and powerful and, domineering and self-serving and overpowering. And we revere these male protagonists. A lot of people really love them, and I think that it was interesting that, I don't know if Kiera Cass meant to do this, but she put the same characteristics in a female protagonist, and instantly we are all turned off. Instantly we are disgusted, we are unamused, we are angry, we are irritated, we are annoyed, we do not like it. And I thought that was fascinating. The scenes where, mild spoiler, Edelyn looks at herself in the mirror and says, there's no one more powerful than me, and it's the truth. There is no one more powerful than her in her world. She is it. She is the most powerful. And I think it's interesting that when we take a young female protagonist who is powerful and strong, and yes, she's not perfect. Yes, she has some things to learn. She needs to learn some social graces, and she is socially inept in a lot of ways, and yet she is still the most powerful woman around. We, as readers, and a lot of us female readers of young adult, are repulsed. And I found that to be really interesting, because we cry out for these powerful, strong female protagonists, and when we are finally shown one, we don't like it, and we run away. And it seems to me that we only enjoy our powerful female protagonists, our strong and brave female protagonists, if they are downtrodden, if they are disenfranchised, if they are fighting against the status quo, and if they are really being beaten down by the government and they are trying to overthrow a regime, if they are revolutionaries. We only like them when they are the underdogs, and when they are in power, and in Edelyn's case, when they are at the top, and there is no one more powerful than her. We don't like it. Why is that? Now, I'm not trying to excuse Edelyn's behavior or her more unappetizing characteristics. However, that was really what I found the most fascinating while I was reading this novel. I really appreciated Edelyn for her strength, for her bravado, for her absolute just how much she embraced her power and her status. You know, it didn't surprise me that she was spoiled. It didn't surprise me that she was arrogant and self-absorbed. I think that her environment, as well as her station in life, you know, that's what happens when you are the heir apparent to a throne of a nation. I do think that I really loved seeing her kind of soften throughout the course of the novel. I loved seeing her grow, and like I talked about earlier, her character arc and how she was beginning to learn more grace and how to wield her power and how to embrace her femininity instead of using her femininity as a dagger and sort of just kind of trying to harden herself. She really, by the end of the novel, I think she was starting to learn how to embrace and being okay with being vulnerable and open and soft. And I really related to her in that way because personally, I am a very guarded person in my personal life, and it takes a lot for me to let people in and to let down my guard. And I enjoy being powerful and confident and strong and bold, and I kind of have a take charge, larger than life type personality, and I like that, and it can be intimidating to a lot of people because it's hard for me to be vulnerable and let my guard down. So I don't really let people see my soft underbelly, so to speak, often. And I really found it refreshing to find a female protagonist like that and to be able to relate to her on that level and completely understand where she was coming from. Not to mention, she's 18 years old, so she has a lot to learn. She's just starting to learn what it means to be powerful and the right way to wield that power and the responsibility that comes with having that much power. As you can see, I'm not going to talk too much about the plot or other characters in the novel, so I will actually link some reviews I've really personally enjoyed watching in this video and also in the description box. So if you want to watch a full and more in-depth review going over more characters, storyline, plot, then definitely go check out the description box. Some booktubers have done fantastic jobs doing that. I just really wanted to talk more about my reading experience with this one, the thoughts that were going through my head and things that really intrigued me and questions that I had. And the biggest question really was just how misogynistic we are towards our female protagonists at times as readers, and especially we female readers. And there are traits within Edelyn that are very revered in male protagonists and that are considered admirable and swoon-worthy in male protagonists. For a lot of us. I'm not going to say for all of us, because not everyone likes the jerky bad boy. I know. I personally do, but I know that not everyone does. And so I just thought it was interesting that when those characteristics show up in a female protagonist, they are considered really distasteful and irritating. Edelyn is very irritating to a lot of readers, and she comes across that way, and I'm not trying to take that from anyone. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but this is mine. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just kind of trying to show you a different perspective and a new way of reading and viewing her character, and maybe that will help some of you and encourage some of you to read this or reread this novel with a new point of view. Another thing I really enjoyed about Edelyn is just how disinterested she was in the selection process. It was absolutely fascinating to watch the selection process from the selector and not the selectee, as a lot of other reviewers of this novel have said. And I completely concur with that statement 100%. It is fascinating. And especially from a selector like Edelyn, who is so uninterested and just so almost disgusted and also extremely angry to be put in this position. And she's just not into it. She's not into it at all. She is not interested in any of these boys. She doesn't really want to be married at this point in time. She's not looking for love or for marriage. She's really focused on her career. She's focused on becoming the next ruler of her nation, and she wants to put 100% of her attention and her efforts into learning how to be the best ruler that she can be. I found that so refreshing to just see a young female protagonist who is really focused on herself, on her career, and her own success. I definitely think that Elin went about a lot of her actions and decisions in the wrong way, and that definitely added to why so many readers were just so turned off by her. But, you know, I still really found it fascinating that she just wasn't really into the whole love thing. Of course, the downside of that is that we realize that Edelyn doesn't really understand love in itself. Edelyn needs to learn to love herself. And ultimately, I loved that this wasn't a love story, or, I mean, I'm sure it will be by the end of the second book, as this is a duology. But I love that this will probably be more of a coming-of-age story from how things are going right now, and just more of a story of self-discovery and learning how to love and appreciate yourself, becoming the best you that you can possibly be, especially by the ending and kind of the events that unfold by the end of this novel. You really start to root for Edelyn, and you really start to see that she's definitely on a journey to learning to become a better Edelyn. So those are all my thoughts on The Heir as I was reading it. I really do encourage you to pick it up if you haven't. If you've been discouraged by the mixed reviews or even some of the more negative reviews by more popular booktubers, I think you definitely should give it a shot and try it for yourself. And just keep in mind some of the things that I've brought up in this video, some of the thoughts that I've discussed with you all, and just let me know in the comments what you think if you've read the novel. And I just think it's fascinating. I think it's so interesting how I read this and how I viewed this, and just let me know how you feel and if you feel the same way, I guess. I don't know, I'm just rambling now, but that's it for this video and this discussion on The Heir. Thank you so much for watching. I just want to say hi to all my new subscribers. There's so many of you that are new to my channel, so thank you for subscribing, and hi! Nice to meet you officially. My name is OhSheReads. Lovely to have you. And that's it. I will definitely be having a surprise giveaway video going up soon at some point this month, just to show my appreciation and to thank all of you for watching and subscribing. And I will catch you in my next video. Guess that's it. Bye, guys.